if you've been watching these videos, you probably fall into one of three categories. You're probably either convinced that RTM is right for your practice and you're ready to move forward. You're interested, but you still have a few questions. Or you're really not sure if this is the right time, right? I hear these are the three things I hear all the time. So let me address all three. And then I'm going to tell you exactly what to do next. My name is Dr. Andrew Gorecki. I'm a physical therapist. I'm the owner of MovementRX. And this is your roadmap forward, right? It's really not hard. And so I'm going to help you overcome all these obstacles that you're having in your mind about remote therapeutic monitoring. So if you've watched these videos and you're enjoying them, hopefully, and you're thinking, yes, this makes sense. It makes sense for my practice. I want to implement it. But what's the next steps, right? So I think that's the key is what's the next steps? And well, step one is you need to book a call with me. We really need to talk about the strategy. You need to learn about your practice. I can give you the pathway forward. You can do that by clicking on the link right below this video. And on this call, we'll discuss things like your practice size, your patient volume, what's your current financial situation, what are your goals for RTM? Is it more patient outcome focused? Is it patient engagement? Is it financial? And then really the key question is, the question you need to answer is whether you're going to do a full service model or a do-it-yourself model with monitoring time. We'll talk about the realistic revenue projections for your practice. We'll give you a timeline for implementation, and I'll address any concerns or questions you have. And this is not a sales pitch. This is just a strategy session. I want this to be normal. This needs to be normal in all practices. So I'll tell you whether RTM is a good fit for your practice or not. And some practices aren't ready. Some practices are not a good fit. And I've learned over the past 3 years when to identify that. And I'll tell you if that's the case. So step one is book that call. Step two is if we're a good fit, we'll schedule your implementation kickoff, right? So, we set a start date and we begin, this 3 to 4 week kind of implementation process that I've outlined in several videos, but I have a complete guide. It's like a course that you go through that helps you and your entire team know what to do there, right? So step three would really be, we implement together, right? You're not alone. We don't just give you software and training materials and then say, see you later. This is not something, if you want to do it right, you really need to go step by step, right? It's simple, but you have to get walked through it by someone who's done it successfully. So you got to book that call. We can talk about it. We'll see if that makes sense to you. Now, if you're the person who still has questions, right? You're interested, but you still have kind of questions, maybe some doubts, maybe some self-limiting beliefs. Here's what I want you to do, right? A couple options. One would be download the comprehensive guide that I created. It goes through literally everything you can think of. It's a pretty big document. It's called the Physical Therapist Guide to Remote Therapeutic Monitoring. It's 40 pages long, and it covers everything from, how does RTM billing work? What are the documentation requirements? Which patients are eligible? Which insurance covers this by payer? What's the implementation look like? There's a checklist in there, common mistakes to avoid. There's frequently asked questions, which is where I get my video topics from. And it answers 90% of the questions people have. And I'll put that link in this description of the video, right? So that's option one. Option two would be watch more of these videos. Watch this specific video I've created that addresses your concern. Staff buy-in I made on video 16, right? You can see that. It's in our playlist. We talk about one video is about patient costs. We talked about implementation timeline. We talked about reimbursement risks, audit compliance, how to go through an audit, which we've been through. And so I've created content to address every objection or question that I hear. And when I get a new one, I jump on and make a new video, right? So that's option two. Option three would be book a call with me as well. And I can answer your specific questions. And, if they're not answered in a video, you're going to give me some great content ideas, and then I can help you work through those as well for your own situation. So you come up with those questions, you ask them, I'll answer them honestly. And again, no pressure, right? It's just me trying to help you from one PT to the other. And I guess another option would be you can join our monthly webinar series. So we do a webinar once a month. If you're on our Facebook page or our email list, you're going to get that reminder. I typically go live and I give an RTM overview. I answer questions. I show the software. I walk through case studies, data that supports these positive outcomes that we're having with patients, and totally free, right? So you'll see that pop up once a month. But the point is, don't let these unanswered questions stop you, right? You should get the information that you need to make a confident, well-educated decision, right? And now is the time to act, right? Now, if you're the third type of person who's just really not sure this is the right time, right? I think it's like other things in life. We get so caught up on the urgent things that the things that aren't urgent but are important we don't get to, right? So if you're thinking that this sounds great, but I'm not sure if now is the right time, maybe in a few months or after the holidays or after the summer, I'm going to challenge you on that, right? Like, what will be different in a few months? Are your margins going to be better? Is your insurance reimbursement going to be higher? Probably not. They're declining, and so is staff going to be less busy? Probably not. Are you going to have more time? I can tell you, as an owner of multiple businesses, time management is definitely a challenge. There's never a perfect time, right? There's only now. And so if you want to make a real difference in your practice, both from a patient outcome and engagement standpoint, as well as financial, now's the time. What's the cost of waiting, right? Let's say your practice could generate $15,000 a month in revenue with RTM. If you wait 6 months to implement that, it costs you $90,000. What could you do with an extra $90,000 in your practice? I know what I would do. I would give staff raises. I'd hire another PT. I'd invest in a new location or marketing. I'd build a cash reserve, right? So that I can sleep better at night, so I can have less stress, right? So, what's the risk of trying, right? We have a performance-based pricing. So there's zero upfront costs. There's zero monthly fees. There's zero long-term commitment. So, the only risk is the 3 to 4 hours of your time for implementation. And if it doesn't work, you can always stop, right? You've lost nothing. But if it does work, you've added a significant, financial aspect to your practice, as well as you're helping your patients more. So the risk versus reward, I think, is really great. It's very asymmetric, right? Maybe you're asking yourself, like, what happens if you don't adapt, right? Well, there's reimbursement declines, right? Wages are rising, margins are shrinking. And I'm going to tell you, practices that don't find new revenue streams are, they're going to be losing staff to competitors. We've had that happen to the hospital systems and home health. You're going to struggle to stay profitable. You're going to be working your butt off, probably eventually sell or close. And I'm not trying to fearmonger, but this is reality. I'm not saying RTM is the only solution, but it's one of the easiest, lowest risk solutions available right now. And so my recommendation is don't wait. At least have a conversation. It's 15 minutes, and I've seen it all, and I can answer any question you have about this. If after talking you don't decide it's right for you, that's fine. The time's not right, that's okay. But at least you had an informed decision, not a decision based on fear or even worse, maybe procrastination, right? So book that call. It'll be worth your time, I promise you. I've never had anybody jump off the call early because they didn't like what I was saying. I've created over hundreds of videos on RTM because I genuinely believe this is one of the most important opportunities for practice owners, practice managers right now. Not because I'm trying to sell you something, but because I've lived it. I've implemented this in my own practice. I've seen the patient outcomes. I look at them every month. 2 years ago, my practice was struggling, and the margins were below 10%, and I was considering selling. It's just not worth it anymore. And RTM was really that lifeline, that life preserver that was tossed to me. And we've been able to add about $40,000 a month, and our margins went up to 20%. And I'm doing my best to pay staff more competitively. And, I stopped thinking about selling, and I started thinking about, growing. And so we're already doing the work, by the way. We just weren't getting paid for it. We're already focusing on education, patient, and all that stuff. And I want the same thing for you. I want you to have the same experience, both financial stability. I want you to be able to pay your staff as much as you can, what they deserve to be paid. And I want you to stop worrying, about whether or not you're going to make payroll or whether your practice will survive. It's not a good feeling. And, so I want you to get back to why you became a PT in the first place, which is to help patients, right? You're helping people get better, right? And this does that. This helps people get better. It helps the patient get better outcomes. And we have the tracking tools that will show you that every month. Like, the engagement levels are higher, but you got to take the first step, right? You got to get rid of the self-limiting belief, and you got to take that first step something here. So here's what I want you to do right now. I want you to book a 15-minute call with me. It's a strategy call. The link's right below this video, and it's really easy. There's a calendar. You have all my dates and times I'm available. And, if you have questions that you don't want to talk to me, I'm also going to put a link for my comprehensive guide that goes through every single topic and thought process you need to have about RTM. And so you can get that as well. You also can just watch more videos if you want. And at some point I'll address your concern, because I'm trying to address all of them, right? So, but do something. Don't just watch and forget. Your practice deserves better than slowly declining margins and constant financial stress. And your patients deserve better, and you deserve better, right? So you got to take that first step today. That's all I got to say. So thanks for watching these videos. I hope you enjoyed as much as I enjoyed making them, and hopefully we talk soon. And thanks for investing your time in this brief period just watching this.